certainly for me, when I was getting into the show, I was getting in around Earthshock, snake dance sort of way. So the Peri years I remember very fondly. But of all of the shows, there's a couple of Doctor Who shows that you watch over and over and over again if you're a fan. And for me, Pyramids of Mars has got to be one of the best. But certainly in the top 5 is Caves of Androzani. You know, and it brilliantly done, brilliantly acted. I mean, that's a regeneration story. I was talking to somebody about the time of the Doctor. That was the regeneration episode, right? And every time you have a regeneration episode, Caves of Androzani, that's the benchmark. That's a regeneration episode that you go, yes, just you'll watch it again. And I think I wouldn't say this to Colin, but I said something. Time of the Doctor was a nice show. It was a good show, the new thing. But you wanted Caves of Androzani, and what we got was Twin Dilemma, which is just not, you know. Anyway, sorry, I'm a fanboy, I'm rattling. Anyway, like a huge round of applause from Spoke Gillian Brown herself, Nicola Bryant.
What a lovely reception. Thank you so much. That's really great. I'm thrilled to be here in the stables. There we go. Hi, how are you all doing? Good. Hands up, who's not local? Way to go! And I know you've got a lift from quite a long way. Excellent, brilliant. Thank you everyone for being here. Hello, sweetheart. Are you doing this, or I'm quite happy on my own, whatever anybody wants.
Happy on your own?
Oh, I could talk for hours.
I'm happy to leave you.
Great, so guys, do you have any particular burning questions you'd like to ask? Oh, gentleman at the front, straight away. Excellent. Do you want to take that?
I'll be your one.
Oh, how sweet. Oh, that's the one I was pointing.
Sorry.
That one I pointed to. Yes, he was first. There we go. Hold on. There we go. We've got a bit more slack now.
In the first episode of Caves of Androzani, when you and Peter enter the cave, you fall into a bouncing mattress and jump up. And I was listening into the commentary, and I was wondering if 30 years on you still laugh at little moments like that when you look back at that.
Oh, I do, absolutely. I mean, did you hear the question, everybody? Right. The thing about Doctor Who, when we were filming it, there was never a retake for the actors. If the Dalek failed to exterminate, if the Cyberman fell over, if the explosion didn't go off, there would be a retake. But if the actor dropped down, fell on the floor, slipped in a puddle, or got their lines wrong, no, there was never a retake. So the fact that when I fell through into the Spectrops Toxemia nest, you could see later that I bounced off this trampoline afterwards. They never retook that. I suppose in today's world they could like CGI me out so I wouldn't bounce back up again. But in those days, you really did see what we really did do. But those moments I look back very fondly on. I think it's what makes the programme so incredibly British. Because I don't think that would happen in an American show at all. I love that. I think it makes it quite eccentric. Oh, and this gentleman here.
Nicola, who was the very first Doctor Who you grew up with in the old series of Doctor Who?
The first Doctor I was...
That you grew up with?
I grew up with. John Pertwee was the first Doctor that I really remember in my childhood. And I loved John Pertwee, and I loved Katie Manning as Jo. That was the relationship I grew up with, and Bessie and Unit. And my parents, we used to go to the coast at weekends. And when the Sea Devil story came out, that weekend on the little telly we watched it on, I was absolutely terrified of going anywhere near the sea from that point on. I didn't like it much anyway. It was really cold and British and grey, and seaweed and pebbles and Grey's knees, and it wasn't pretty. But that was, for me, was the final straw. That was the reason to not go in at all. To always be slightly on the top of the hill, just in case you needed to run. And the little place we used to sleep in it was on stilts, tiny stilts, and rabbits used to run around underneath the house. So you'd lie there in your bed thinking, there's something underneath the house. And it would always be straight after Doctor Who that we'd gone to bed. So it was certainly, my life, I think, was very shaped by watching Doctor Who as a child. It was something that stimulated your imagination and really left you wanting to go off on adventures, even if they weren't very far, just to the green and back. But, you know, it just gave you that sense of wanting to do something a little bit different. So, anyone else? Oh, yes, we've got quite a few coming now. There we go. Oh, you do it. You're in charge now. I don't want to get blamed.
Is it true that when you auditioned for the show, you actually faked the American accent, pretending to be American yourself to
From the beginning, from the absolute beginning, because I was in a show in drama school, a musical called No No Nanette, if any of you know it, and we were doing the American score and the American play, and an agent, Terry Carney, came to see the show, and he was William Hartnell's son-in-law. So he always had kind of Doctor Who on his mind. And he came to see this show, and he made a note in his book, one American, Nicola Bryant, and then made a list about all the other people. So he thought I was a genuine American in the show, and that other people weren't. And I'd only been out of drama school about 5 or 6 days, less than a week. And my phone went, and of course while I was in drama school I was writing to everyone, all these agents, sending them my address and phone number and hoping I might get a little job somewhere. And he rang me and said, I'd like you to come in and have a meeting. I've got an audition that I think would be perfect for you. I'd only just left drama school, and his voice sounded just like a friend of mine from drama school. He was a real prankster. So I thought it was him. So his name is Steve, and I said, oh, Steve, get off the phone. You great prankster, you great lump of, you know. And I'm talking to an agent, and he's going, no, this is a genuine call. I go, ha, 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 you're so funny, Steve. That's brilliant. Yeah, like they're going to ask me to audition for Doctor Who. Yeah, get off the phone, I'll see you in the pub. You know, put the phone down. Phone goes again. And it's a woman speaking this time, and it's his secretary. And I'm going, oh my. So she explained, she said, perhaps you'd like to call us back on this number, and you will appreciate that this is Eric Levine Smith and Carney Associates calling, and we would like to have a word with you. So it's like, it's okay, you can just put me through. So having started the whole conversation on a very strange note, I was then speaking to this agent, and he was like, no, I want to speak to Nicola Bryant. And I went, that's me. No, she's American. No, I was acting. Funnily enough. And so I went in and I had a meeting with him, and he said, the only problem is they are only auditioning Americans and Canadians for the part. They're flying them in. And he said, so what I want you to do is just be exactly like you were on stage, same voice, same accent, same energy, because I think you're the right person for this part. And I said, why, what's the description? And he said, now don't let that fool you, because it said, tall, blonde Californian. So he said, no, I just want you to go for it. And I said, but do I have to pretend to be American all the time? He was like, yes, you do. I was like, okay. And he said, if you get the part, he was quite big, I'll take you on, and if you get the part, we'll then tell them once you've got the part. So I mean, the odds were incredibly long that somebody straight out of drama school would get the part, but they just kept auditioning me again and again. And the first audition was just a meeting with John Nathan Turner, a chat. And then the next audition, there was a sort of fake script that we'd learned. And then the one after that, they started giving Eric Smith, who was going to play Peter Davison. That was interesting. Not Eric, sorry, Eric Saywood, who was the script editor. And they kept going on, and then they finally said, we've got it down to 2 people. It's you and one other person, but you need to have an equity card. And do you guys all know what that is? Because in those days, you had to have an equity card to work, and I didn't have one. So they gave me 3 weeks to find an equity card, to get a job, to give me my equity card in order to play the part. Which was a little complex, but I managed to do it, and I got the part, which for the whole time, they thought I was American. And then I said to my agent, okay, right, I've got the part, now you tell them I'm not American. And he was like, right, could we just wait until we've signed the contract? And I was like, okay, right. And then the first thing they wanted me to do was to go on breakfast television and chat about the part and getting the role. So I thought, well, I'm not going to go on and chat in an American accent, surely. So I said to my agent, you need to tell them before I do breakfast TV. And he said, no, why don't you do a sort of bilingually sort of accent thing? Maybe your father's American and your mother's British. And I went, okay, there's a good possibility that a large number of my family and friends might be watching this breakfast show, and somebody might just say, she's not American. And he was like, oh, well, we'll deal with that later. And basically, I was rehearsing, going to conventions, playing the part, American, all the time. For like 2 years. And I think it was finally when Colin Baker and his wife invited me and the person he thought was my boyfriend to dinner, and my boyfriend, who was in fact my husband, was American, and I said, I can't walk in his house and lie to him. That just seems wrong. He's my friend. I can't go into his house and do that. It just felt wrong. So as we got to the door, he opened the door and he introduced me to his wife, and I said, hello, I'm Nicola. And he looked at me like, you don't have to put on a British accent to come in the house. He was sort of saying, I said, no, this is my real voice. And he thought I was joking. And it was about half an hour before he went, you really are good at that English accent. And finally, he realised, he had no idea before. And when he left the show, he was the one who actually told the press that I wasn't American. But the interesting thing is the press made nothing of it, because it was kind of like a non-story, because the moment in a way had passed. So it was a very quiet thing. Of course now, loads of actors from England are in millions of various television shows, and they're quite happy to have our British accents doing American accents. But in those days, it was like, kept it a secret. Thank you.
Can you please tell the story?